have made it to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show that looks to inform, educate, and hopefully make you laugh. Stu and the Nunn is a show focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. Like to thank those who make this show possible and allow us to bring it to you. Our show sponsors are Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. You can't go wrong when you have such a great studio audience, virtual studio audience, welcoming us into our show here, October 8th. Toby, how you doing, buddy? We are back.
Living the dream, man. Living the dream. You know, like super excited for that, fanfare that we just received, because it's so deserving from this live studio audience. But man, I am excited about tonight, dude. I'm gonna let you be the hype dude, because usually I'm the hype guy, but
wow, you are, because you are quite the hype guy. I mean, you are. I can't hold the candle.
I'm semi-pro. I'm Bush League.
I heard you've been putting your resume out there to be, the hype guy for some folks. Man, I don't know.
I have, mm-hmm. Man. Like I try to, but I'm not gonna hype this guy up too much. I'm gonna let you do that, because I always overhype the blue cord, man.
Well, and
when I say overhype, there's no way that you can ever overhype a blue cord. And anytime we have a fellow blue cord wearer on the show, man, I just get so amped.
Why does God love the infantry?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right.
He does.
He
does.
So absolutely, yeah, we are very excited to have Alek on tonight. It is if you don't know the name, if you haven't read the blog post, if you haven't watched the news in the last few years, and if you didn't go look at an awesomely produced campaign video, then I don't know what you've been doing all day. But obviously, it was the wrong thing. And if you don't know the story, if you don't watch Dancing with the Stars, I mean, come on. I mean, we're hitting every genre here, or he's hitting every genre. So I mean, we're capturing it all. But yeah, we're very excited to welcome, not only because of many things that he's done in his past, and just serving our country and deploying and everything else, and fighting terrorists, himself, and but also he's a veteran running for office, and it's something we have highlighted a number of times on this show, as we have tried to highlight those who have given, who have sacrificed, who've raised the right hand, willing to lay their life down, and then come back from that and continue wanting to show in that public service, whether it's in serving the community locally in elected office, or law enforcement, or firefighter, or it's trying to go to the national level. So we love highlighting veterans, no matter what their stance is or policy, who are trying to go to, if you think about how this country was founded, they were farmers, lawyers, war fighters, all that kind of made up the founding fathers of this country, inventors, and it's good to see fresh young blood come in that have been out there, that know what the people want or what they care about, and not the lifelong people that spend 30, 40 years. So absolutely. With that, we would love to welcome on here, as I bring on his video, Mr. Alek. I'm going to try to say, I didn't clear his name beforehand, so I'm going to see if I can say it. Skarlatos. Is that right, Alek?
You got it. Absolutely.
I have lots of Irish friends. Greek friends. So, hey, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's we're excited about this. Like we said, you are a well-known name in the space, and we are and if anything else, I mean, I kind of heard about you before, but then I saw your YouTube video, and I was like, all right, this guy we got to get on, because it's so much better than our Bush League show. So Maybe you could give us some tips. But anyways, welcome. Why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, kind of give our listeners a little bit of a background of just of kind of where you're from and what you did and kind of your humble beginnings in Oregon and then we'll kind of take about from there.
Yeah, so I'm actually originally from Sacramento, California. Grew up there. That's where I met my two friends that we, helped stop a terrorist attack together. But I've been living in Oregon for about 10 years, graduated high school up here, did the Oregon Army National Guard, did sniper school, air assault school, basic leadership course, 9 month deployment to Afghanistan. After the deployment to Afghanistan, me and two friends helped stop a terrorist attack on a train to Paris. And then shortly after that, did a book and a movie with Clint Eastwood, and then got out of the military in 2017. And about a little over a year ago now, decided to run for Congress due to a lot of issues that we're facing down here in southwestern Oregon.
Well, I mean, could you lead a more boring life? I mean, what have you done with yourself? I mean,
yeah, if only you were interesting.
Yes,
Like
you had a story. But no, so we'll take it back there. We'll start with the. I mean, you were in Oregon National Guard, and you deployed over to Afghanistan, serving your country. When you signed up, I'm just curious, as a retired first sergeant myself, and both active in National Guard, and having watched many a soldier re-enlist or come in after 9/11. When you came in, did you what was your thoughts? Did you think you may go to war one day? Were you looking for that, or was kind of what was your reason for joining the National Guard?
Honestly, it was something I've kind of always wanted to do. In particular, my main goal, and I guess the whole point of me joining, was trying to go to sniper school. So I was incredibly grateful that I actually got that opportunity. I didn't really intend to deploy or anything like that. I didn't realize that when I signed up that we were gearing up for deployment. So I was, I think, only back from basic training maybe 6 months before we went to Afghanistan. But no, it was mostly just because it was something I always wanted to do, and I didn't have much direction in my life at the time. And I think when I was like 12 or 13, I think it was when Surviving the Cut, that show, first came out, and I saw that they did one on sniper school. And it just really piqued my interest. And I think it was probably the only thing I ever did in the military that actually lived up to my expectations.
Wow! And were you in the 41st Brigade
Yeah.
out of Oregon? Okay, yeah. I deployed with them in Afghanistan in 2006. So
Oh, okay.
I was attached underneath them out of New York. So yeah, know the 41st well. It's interesting because
Very cool.
I know kind of someone back then that had the same story. Like, I signed up, I didn't know they were deploying when I signed up. So that was the old welcome to the unit. Go get in line and start getting stuff issued to you.
Pretty much. I mean, it was National Guard deploys on like a 5 year cycle, and we were like on year 4.5, and we deploy at the 5 year mark. So it was just excellent timing on my part. But I actually was kind of unusual. I only signed up for 3 years and actually re-enlisted for 2, so I only did a total of 5 years.
Okay, all right. Well, as an awesome 5 years, and you're part of that 1% crew that has, in this global war on terror now, 19 years of war that has ever, raised the right hand and been part of that. So thank you for your service for sure. And then, but you kept on going. So you ended up how did you end up Paris? You guys just like, we're going to take some R&R time or how did you end up over there?
So when I was living in Sacramento, I was neighbors with a family that had kids all of our same age, both single moms, and we got really close. All the kids were like the same age, like I said, and we got into all sorts of trouble. So much so that I was actually kind of kicked out of my mom's house and moved up to Oregon to live with my dad. But all three of us stayed in touch. We met Anthony, our other friend, when we were in middle school, and I was coming off of the Afghanistan deployment, and I happened to have this German friend who I was going to go visit after Afghanistan, and I just happened to be talking to my childhood friend Spencer, who was in the Air Force and was deployed to Portugal, if you call that a deployment. And he was chilling in Portugal. So I said, I'm going to be in Europe. You're already in Europe. Let's meet up. So after hanging out with my German friend for about 10 days, me, Spencer, and Anthony all met up in Amsterdam. After about 3 days in Amsterdam, we decided to take the train to Paris. And there's a lot of things that went into that decision of us being in that time and place. I mean, can't really admit it because I'm running for office, but we had a lot of fun in Amsterdam. So much so that we debated staying another day, but we didn't because we were poor. So we had already bought our tickets and they're non-refundable. And it was a first class ticket too. We
Phew.
got to the train station, actually helped an elderly British gentleman get on the train. So we ended up in the middle of the train. Then we only moved because the Wi-Fi didn't work. And then after we moved up to first class, where the Wi-Fi was better, I even switched Spencer's seats. So he was on the aisle, or as we now call it, the combat seat, and I was on the window. And we just kind of settled in. Spencer and Anthony went to sleep, and after about being on the train for 3 hours, we had just crossed the border into France, and I heard a gunshot and breaking glass, and that's when it all went down.
And you didn't even think, right? You ran to the fires. We see a lot of T-shirts say, and people say it was just instinct. Was it just muscle memory and training that just, I'm not going to be a victim, and who other but me?
I wish I put that much thought into it, frankly.
I'm sure. Yeah, it
It
was
was
quick.
just
Yeah.
what happened was I heard a gunshot and breaking glass. Spencer and Anthony were both asleep. Um, I heard a gunshot and breaking glass, kind of put my head up. I didn't really know what to think of it at the time. Then a train employee came running away from the noise at a full sprint. I looked back to see what he was running from, and there's a shirtless man with an AK-47, and just kind of the shock and disbelief of like, there's no way this is actually happening. But then knowing in the back of my mind that it was actually happening, and Spencer woke up at that point, turned around to see what I was looking at, and ducked down next to me. And pretty much without thinking very much at all, I just hit him on the shoulder and said, "Let's go." And I was kind of implying, let's go in a minute when he gets a little bit closer, maybe after he kills a few people and has to reload. But I hit him on the shoulder, and to his credit, immediately after waking up from a nap and seeing a terrorist on a train, he got up, ran at the guy, and made it all the way to him and tackled him, and I followed him. And I think the biggest thing that probably went into the reaction that we had was simply just that we'd known each other since we were 5 years old. We had joked about that kind of thing happening before, and we just knew that we were going to be on the same page. And I mean, I really wish we had a plan or thought about it very much, but it was really just an impulse. And I wish I could tell you why, but I think that's probably the biggest factor.
No, I love the honesty of tapping him and saying let's go, and you're trying to come up with a plan, and he just kind of wakes up. Okay, poof, and you're like, oh crap. Okay, I guess we're going now.
That's exactly what happened. I hit him on the shoulder, and I was like ducked behind like these two seats, right? Peering in between the two seats, looking backwards at the terrorist. And admittedly, I got kind of tunnel vision from the adrenaline. So I'm like looking out and I'm like, let's go. And the next thing I know, I see him like already halfway to the guy out of the corner of my eye. So I get up and follow him. And by the time I get there, he's already tackled him and was trying to get him in a headlock. And then I picked up the AK-47, tried to shoot him with that. It was on safety. And then before I could figure it out, the terrorist had pulled out a handgun and was trying to line it up with Spencer's head, who was behind him, choking him. And I dropped the AK, pried the handgun out of his hands, hit him in the face a few times with it, and then he had pulled out a box cutter and was cutting Spencer on the back of his neck, only about an inch away from his carotid, or jugular, whichever one this is, I forget. But Spencer then yelled, he's got a knife, get him off of me. Spencer kicked him off of him. At that point, Anthony had joined us, and all three of us were kind of surrounding the guy, punching him, kicking him, doing whatever we could. And then finally, Spencer and I kind of are basically holding his head against a table with his arms kind of flailing about, trying to get control of him. And I still had the handgun in my hand, and it was the single action, like a Browning high power, basically a 1911. And I saw the hammer was back and it was on safety, so I just put the gun to the back of his head, told him stop resisting. Probably didn't speak English, so I took the safety off and pulled the trigger, and that gun didn't go off either. So I cycled it and realized that it was empty and threw the handgun. And what had actually happened was, before we had even gotten involved, there was the terrorists had gotten on the train in Brussels, which is about halfway between Amsterdam and Paris. He went to the bathroom to get all of his weapons ready, and he watched a jihadist video on his phone, and he was in there for so long that by the time he came out, there was two passengers waiting to use the restroom. One was named Mark, the other was Damien. Damien, to his credit, immediately realized what was going on, started kind of choking the terrorist with the AK kind of pinned between their bodies. Mark, the other gentleman, was trying to grab the AK-47. Then a train employee came up, broke them up, thinking it was just a regular fight, and then saw the AK-47. He ran to the front of the train. Mark ended up getting the AK-47 and ran to the front of the train. Damien ran to the back of the train. Then the terrorist pulled out the handgun. In doing so, since he just had it in his waistband, not in a holster or anything like that, or because he wasn't familiar with it, I'm not sure, but when he pulled it out, he accidentally dropped the magazine, then shot the one round in the chamber, hitting Mark in the neck, and that was the gunshot and breaking glass that we initially heard. And then, of course, the train employee running past us, alerting us that something was wrong. And since there was no magazine in there to lock the slide back, I was assuming it was loaded, realized that it wasn't, threw the handgun. At this point, we were getting pretty frustrated. And then Spencer gets him in another chokehold on the other side of the aisle. I pick the AK-47 back up and just start kind of hitting him in the head with the muzzle. It was like a slant break Draco side folding AK-47. And I was just trying to hit him in the temple, to doing whatever I could, trying to knock him unconscious. And then finally I watched him go unconscious from Spencer's chokehold. Fortunately, Spencer knew Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and was able to get a blood choke on him eventually. And Spencer was continuing to choke the guy because he was pretty upset about the whole situation, especially getting the lacerations on the back of his neck and even his thumb. And then a train employee came up and was like slapping the terrorist, trying to show Spencer that, he was unconscious, he could stop choking him. And we politely told the guy to get lost. And
was that polite? Was it politely?
Oh, no.
If I could get a direct quote.
Probably, maybe after my political career is over.
Yeah. So there's some infantry vernacular involved?
Probably a little bit.
Love it.
But yeah, so Spencer was continuing to choke the guy, and he probably would have killed him if we didn't look up and see a guy, Mark, trying to stand up in the middle of the aisle with blood squirting out of his neck. And so being the good delegator that I am, I once again said, hey, Spencer, go get that guy. Because Spencer was an EMT in the Air Force, so I knew that was right up his lane. And so Spencer threw the terrorist on the ground, crawled over, put two fingers in Mark's neck wound and stopped the bleeding. Being infantry, first priority of work is security, so I took the AK-47. And a British gentleman had offered to help, so I told him just to watch the terrorist. I took the AK-47. I was going to just check the rest of the train just to make sure there was no other injured passengers or, God forbid, any other terrorists. So I went to cycle the AK-47 thinking that it wasn't loaded since nobody was shot with it. And when I did so, a round ejected from the chamber and landed on the seat next to me. I could see clearly that there's a dent in the back of the primer, and I picked it up, and sure enough, it wasn't a light strike or anything like that. There was a full-on dent in the back of the primer, so we just got incredibly lucky that he had bad Russian ammunition. And made some remark about, look how lucky we got. Checked the rest of the train. Everything was fine. Came back, unloaded all the weapons. The British guy had actually hog-tied the terrorist for us with neckties. Don't know how he knew how to do that, but good for him. And then
he's got a mistress.
Something's going on there. He definitely wasn't military, but again, good for him.
He'd watch Caddyshack.
Well, yeah, after came back, unloaded all the weapons, helped Spencer with Mark's medical care, and we pretty much handled the situation on our own for about 20-25 minutes until we got to the train station, and EMTs and police came on board and took the situation over. Went to the police station. Spencer went to the hospital along with Mark, and the terrorist went to jail.
Wow, that's a lot of that was definitely a lot of detail, and I appreciate you going into that because, I mean, to able to, you know, the 40, I mean, you're right. How lucky. I mean, we used to say, when you probably did when you were in Afghanistan too, when I was there, I'd be like, are so lucky our enemy is so dumb. If they were half as smart as anything, they would have probably rolled us up many times. And to have a, you know, putting in his waistband and dropping the mag, taking all that time, definitely took a lot of bad actions. But obviously, at some point, he tried to fire that AK. Interesting that it
Yeah.
was back on safe. Yeah, a lot of.
Well, I think that's actually what had happened was he probably tried to shoot Mark or Damien in the initial struggle, or tried to shoot Spencer when he was running at him. And I think just from a lack of training, I think he only had like a week of training in Syria with ISIS. Um, I think after it misfired, he put it back on safe before trying to cycle it. And then that's why he wasn't able to cycle it or get another round off before
Right.
Spencer got to him.
Wow, that is quite a story, and happened in just seconds. I mean, right? You like you talked about that tunnel vision, as we know, you get that adrenaline going, and we always call it the time stand still moments, right? You know, seconds turn into seem like minutes, and you know everything just kind of slows down.
Yeah, it was definitely very interesting, especially when it came to the reactions that we all had from the adrenaline. We all had very different reactions. I was almost cavalier and making jokes, and so was Anthony. And then Spencer, of course, was pretty pissed off and understood the seriousness of the whole situation with his own injuries and trying to help Mark. And frankly, I thought Mark was going to die. I just thought there was no way in hell, because he'd lost so much blood. But to Spencer's credit, he definitely saved Mark's life.
Yeah, that is awesome, and you know, I'm sure at the time, even right after, you could not even have had an idea or an imagination of what it would turn into, right, and what that would spawn. Um,
Absolutely not. No, it was even a few days later when we had realized that it had become like a story across Europe and even some of the United States. Uh, I mean, we just thought it was going to be like a flash in the pan type of thing, or uh, I don't know. I just didn't think. I just never thought that it would become the story that it ended up becoming. I mean, I think it was only the second ISIS terrorist attack in Europe. And so I think with what happened afterwards with the Bataclan and the Brussels airport bombing coming from the same terror cell, that really helped it become a bigger story, simply because it's not every day that we were able to stop things like this. And seeing what could have happened, kind of like what you said, it was a great plan, just very poorly executed. And I mean, even knowing what we know now with a lot of the documents coming out of the court case, I mean, there was supposed to be two other terrorists on the train with him, and both of them bailed at the last minute. And he was the only one that went through with it. I mean, there was a lot of things that went our way that, I mean, I don't know if you guys are religious or whatever, but I just think that there's got to be more than just statistical anomalies of all those things happening. I mean, even I only knew how to use an AK-47 because I owned one. I only knew how to use the Browning high power because I owned a 1911. I only knew what to do afterwards because of the infantry training. Spencer doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and being an EMT in the Air Force. I mean, there are a lot of things that just we had no way of knowing that would be a factor that came into play that day.
oh, I would say God put you guys there, and put
Yeah,
a
for
lot of
sure.
people there. I mean, the two gentlemen, Damien and Mark, I mean, it could have went 10 million different directions, and definitely everything was put in the right place. So that is awesome. And go ahead, Toby.
Yeah, I want to.
Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Toby.
want to just go back and make a quick comment on that, because Mark, you know, here's a guy. So, and I'm not saying this to sound like a jerk. Like, we expect that behavior out of you, right? You have this training, you have this understanding, you have these experiences, and God put you with that training and that experience at the right place at the right time to do your thing. This guy Mark was just trying to go to the bathroom, right? Just like, and like had the presence of mind, like, oh, I need to close the distance. You know, like that's like,
Well, I mean,
you know,
it's
I just don't want to
Mark.
take away from his heroism either. You know, it's like that's badass. You know, like
No, Mark literally took the bullet for us. I mean, he got shot. He was the one. He was the only one that got shot. I mean, if it wasn't for his actions, we would have never had the time to even do anything about it. I mean, and Damien and Mark both, I mean, literally just waiting to go to the bathroom, then all of a sudden there's a terrorist standing in front of
Yeah,
you,
isn't that
and
crazy?
they both had the right reaction. I mean,
Yeah.
and don't really know a whole lot about Damien, because after that night he didn't do any interviews, and he wanted to remain anonymous, so no one really knows anything about him. But Mark was just a musician living on a houseboat in Paris, and I mean, had no experience or training in anything like that. And I mean, yeah, we definitely owe him a lot.
I want to
Yeah,
highlight.
and
I want just real quick. I want to highlight how the. I mean, this was just a cat. I mean, Mark just was planning to go to the bathroom. You guys were just on a train. This highlights the importance of people maintaining situational awareness and being vigilant all the time, regardless if they're in a grocery store, they're stopping at a rest area, they're on a train. I mean, it's you can't keep your head down. You got to keep, your eyes paying attention. And I know, in the military there was a time several years ago where people, when you'd come back from deployment, they'd be like, you're too hyper vigilant, you need to calm down, you don't need to quit looking and worrying about everything all the time. But the reality is, and we've seen that in the last number of years as terrorism has found its way to our shores, much less Europe's shores, is that you need to be, and you can't just have your head stuck in a phone and just worrying about your own little world. You really got to be, because you guys had no clue. Mark had no clue. Damien didn't. It was just another trip, right? And
It's funny you bring that up, though, because my head was literally stuck in a phone,
oh,
and
you're on a train, right? What else are you doing? Your
I was
buddies are asleep.
I was watching our trip on Google Maps. That's why I knew. Um, that's actually how we figured out what time the terrorist attack was, because it was when I stopped texting my friends, and I mean, literally, I heard a gunshot and breaking glass, and I was like, "Huh, what was that?" Whatever. And then a guy comes running away from the noise at a full sprint, and that was the only way I knew something was wrong. So I might not be the best example of that, but
But you
I'm
heard it,
probably a little bit.
well, you were so. I mean,
oh,
you were so you wouldn't have expected it. You were so blind. I mean, why would you heard something like, I wonder what that was? Was a train going by somewhere that something just happened? I mean, you just wouldn't. You didn't get the threat brief. It wasn't like, hey, be ready, there could be an attack. You were in a casual day. But the second you put two and two, it's like I think back of 9/11, right? When everyone saw the first tower hit, they were like,
Mhm.
how that happened? How did a plane run into? When they saw the second tower hit, everybody was like, it's game on. Everyone knew what it was. There was no doubt in anyone's mind. So it was almost like it took both events, the shot and the breaking glass, and then you saw the guy run. You were like, nope, this is not a coincidence.
Well,
so
absolutely. And I mean, I was just gonna say, if Mark didn't stop the terrorist or slow him down, I mean, we would have had almost no warning. I mean, there would have been a gunshot, then there probably would have been another gunshot, and then before you know it, we would have all been dead. I mean, so by him taking that first gunshot and tripping the terrorist up enough to where he didn't know how to respond and cycle his own weapon, I mean, uh, he allowed us time to get involved. And I mean, really, between me, Spencer, Anthony, Mark, Damien, and the British guy that helped us tie the terrorist up, I mean, it was really a group effort, an international group effort, and everything just happened the way it was meant to.
so I kind of want to talk. I want to touch on that if you don't mind, Alec, and then we'll move on. But I think it's a wonderful testimony to a couple of things. One, uh, as infantrymen, we understand, and as military members or veterans, and a lot of people in certain aspects of uh, law and order, you understand that all good plans go out the window on first contact. And you usually have a really good plan until you get punched in the face, right? To quote Mike Tyson. And so his lack of training, this terrorist lack of training, with the weapon, but also like it is tough to train resistance, uh, and that's something that we as leaders try to drill in, right? That's something that we're always trying to capture, is like that you have to be prepared for resistance. The next thing I want to kind of touch on is this cultural thing that I think if a guy did something like that on a train in America, his success rate would go up. And the reason I'm making that statement is because we, with the exception of, and we can count on our hands or a single hand, the number of successful terrorist attacks on our soil. And when you think of that like our society is unprepared. That's why like school shootings, theatrical shootings, what happened in Las Vegas, like that's why these attacks are so successful, is because the common citizen doesn't have that situational awareness or that ability to process that moment because of lack of familiarity. But yet in Europe, they have a familiarity that we're blessed not to have. Like Charlie Hebdo. When you think of these different things, you think of what the things you just mentioned, the Brussels airport. When they've been dealing with this a lot more than we've had to because of the success that we have in our law and order system, right? By what we have in terms of intelligence, what we have in terms of law enforcement, what we have in terms of task force that are able to go do this. And that's why this is so crucial. And this is like, why I personally get frustrated when people say, well, we need to reimagine, like how we're policing. We need to reimagine how we're dealing with this thing. It's like, no, like you need to like come to terms with not reimagining. You need to come to terms with reality. And that's like, we need the opposite of what you're saying. We don't need to reimagine. We need to reinvest. We need to like retrain. We need to spend way more time training. We need to spend way more time educating our population, our general population, on how to deal with just basic things. That's why, like, when we have these natural disasters, we seem to be able to make it through because we're used to dealing with them. I was just out in your neck of the woods, pardon the pun, not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago. I was on a wonderful trip with Veteran Outdoors. We took a bunch of wounded warriors and brothers, from a great infantry unit out of Fort Lewis, Washington, and took them on a great, badass salmon fishing excursion on the Columbia River. And man, it was smoky as crap, right? Because the fires are going buck wild. Like, well, y'all know how to deal with fires. And here in Texas, we're getting pretty proficient at dealing with freaking hurricanes. We're getting pretty proficient at dealing with like tornadoes and crap like that. But with the exception of like, that Garland, Texas attack, that didn't make it out of the parking lot. Like, we really as a society aren't prepared. And that's why I go back, like, we're not prepared for when that guy in Aurora, Colorado is going through that, movie theater. We're not prepared when a guy's, punching out the windows in his hotel room and putting plunging fire down into a group at a concert, like, and we need to do this. And I think that's why it's important for guys like you, guys like us, to continue to lead. And so like, y'all ran, on the train, and now you're running into, a dumpster fire, if you will, of politics. And like, but this is why. It's because like, we need people that are prepared. And so like, I want to talk about the transition that you've made from, it's cool, to be in like on movies like Range 15. It's cool to like, I mean, I could talk to you about for hours about what it would be like to have conversations with Mr. Eastwood, and to like have some of the experience. I'm a big film guy. I love that kind of stuff. But then getting on Dancing with the Stars, and like, you're a handsome guy. I'm not an idiot. Like, like, good for you, bro. Good for you. But that transition from there to like, how do I take this opportunity, this experience, and this knowledge base that I've gained at such a very young age, and make my community better? And I'd love to talk about how you came to terms with like, I'm going to continue to serve. This is how I think I can make the impact.
Yeah, again, I wish it was that intentional, but it really wasn't. What so when it comes to preparedness, I guess the only thing that the terrorist attack really taught me was the importance of not getting soft. I mean, there's a lot of veterans that get out of the military, um, gain a bunch of weight, or just don't keep up on their skills, if you will. And I don't think everybody needs to be like John Wick or anything like that. But I mean, staying in halfway decent shape, still knowing how to shoot, knowing at least the basics of first aid and medical care, not just for terrorist attacks and things like that, but really anything you might run into on the day to day, like car accidents and things like that. I mean, just being a good,
Amen.
well-rounded person was probably the most important lesson that I learned, and really just doing something. Period. I mean, even if like the British guy that helped us tie the terrorist up. I mean, he had no experience whatsoever. He wasn't in the military. He had no first aid training. He really had no business being in that situation. But just by offering his help, it freed us up. I mean, by him tying up the terrorist, I was able to check on the rest of the train. And God forbid if there was another person that was shot or another terrorist, I mean, that would have been vital. And just offering to help and doing something, whether or not you know exactly what you're getting into, is always the right choice, I think. And when it came to making the transition into politics, I mean, it was not something that I did intentionally. Um, I was actually flying to DC and just by chance met a state senator, and we talked politics, agreed on most everything. And he encouraged me to look at politics as a way of continuing to fight for what we believe in. And I kind of blew him off at first because who wants to get involved in politics these days? But to his credit, he kept up. And frankly, the more I learned, the angrier I got and just
Mm.
wanted to do something about it. I mean, politics is responsible for a lot of problems in society. And here in Southwestern Oregon, between the forest fires and us being the poorest congressional district in the state, it's definitely to blame for a lot of our problems. And I thought I'd be in a position to fix it. I mean, Oregon politics is kind of a wreck. Um, and when you see Democrats or really one side of either party controlling things for too long to any extreme, it's not healthy for the country or for our state. And I just saw all the things that were lacking in politics in Southwestern Oregon and decided that if someone wasn't going to do it, that I better do it.
Yeah, and you have grabbed it and ran with it. Now you're not going against a lackey. You're going against somebody that is entrenched, right? You're going against someone that has big money behind them. It's a monstrous task. Not that you haven't taken on others before, but is there any? Did that give you any pause, or did you jump right in and say, "I'm going with this," or did you look at what your opposition was, right? Who that is across the battlefield from you?
Well, I knew it was going to be very tough. And to be honest, I probably didn't assess everything like I should have. I did kind of just jump in with both feet. We learned a lot of lessons early on, um, when it came to running for office and everything you have to do. I mean, it's definitely a process. This is probably over 2 years in the making now. But we, I have a great team behind me, and we learned a lot of lessons early. And since we won the primary, we've been able to really capitalize on all the lessons that we learned early on. And I mean, definitely helping to stop a terrorist attack and being in a Clint Eastwood movie and all those things helps. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm running on the issues that are facing Oregon's fourth congressional district and Western and Southwestern Oregon. And I mean, well, fingers crossed for November, but it's definitely exciting. We've got a really good shot at it, and we've been giving it everything we've got. And we're one of the most competitive races in the country now. So it's definitely an exciting place to be.
Yeah.
So let's
Go
talk
ahead,
let's talk
Toby.
about that moment when you won the primary. Like, was that another moment like where you were looking through two seats down at a shirtless guy with an AK and you're like, well, shit, like this is real. Like here we go.
No, I think I'm at that moment right now, seeing how much money is being spent and how divided people are. I mean, people saying terrible things about me and even the guy I'm running against. And in most cases, they're people that have never met me. They're just saying these things because I'm a Republican, so they assume I represent all these evil ideas in their head. And just with how divided politics has become in this country, it's definitely an interesting time to be running for office between everything that's going on, really. But it's crazy. I mean, winning the primary was no accident. I mean, we worked our butts off and had a lot of things going for us. I mean, we did get lucky in a few ways, of course, but I mean, we really earned that spot. And I think it's just where we're at now, where it's kind of like a little overwhelming, I'd say.
Who's who's currently seated uh, throughout the land that's reached out and offered support to you, like encouragement? Like have any like congressional members or senators uh, reached out and been like, "Hey, kid, like I love it, man. Let's go. Here's what I learned here. Here's how we can help. You should talk to this one." Someone told
Yeah.
you, whoever gave you your advice on making your campaign video, like that dude deserves like one of the coins behind you, because like that is one of the baddest campaign videos ever. I'm like, and I love campaign videos, and I even like campaign videos of people I don't like. Like there's one, this old video that MJ Hager made. Like she's a Blackhawk pilot, but like yours, man, I'm a lumber guy. I grew up in northern British Columbia. The soft lumber industry is a huge part of my, the fabric of my life, and like seeing you walk through the lumber yard and just like the one shot, like the constant, the beauty of the cinematography, the messaging. I was like, man, this dude's got some people. So like, who are the people?
Well, that was actually a media company called Arsenal, and they've actually done a few ads for other candidates as well. Um, but when it comes to people in office, um, Ted Cruz has been pretty helpful. A
Nice.
lot of the veterans in office, like Crenshaw, Waltz,
Nice.
Green, they've
Nice.
all been fantastic.
I see
Um,
Tom
Tom,
Cotton. I mean,
Tom Cotton, actually, yeah, he's been one of my personal favorites. Um,
kind of close
Simply
to you in age.
because,
Both kind of in the same wartime aspects and everything else.
Yeah.
Definitely close by.
yeah, and he, I appreciate him just because after we won the primary, actually, he called me on the phone and we talked for almost half an hour, just giving me advice and things like that. So probably
Awesome.
that group, most of the veterans and Ted Cruz, and of course Kevin McCarthy being the House Minority Leaders helped us out as well. Um, and honestly, one of the things that really blows me away, especially with how everybody vilifies politicians, is how a lot of them mean well, most of them mean well, and a lot of them are incredibly intelligent. And that's something that I think people don't really understand. They just see the disagreements that arise on especially larger, more important bills, and they just think that it's a disaster. And there's definitely a lot more working across the aisle that we could be doing on both sides. But it's we do have a good group, absolutely.
And it looks like you also, besides national leaders at the national level, you have economists, you have veterans, you have a lot of local politicians, local in the Oregon area, mayors and state reps and things like that. So it's not, you're just not grabbing the fame and the big names up there. You have the people in your community, that are around you on your left and right or in your area that are also standing beside you, which I think probably goes a long way, I'd imagine, with the constituents there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of my personal favorites, he's actually not in Oregon, but is a guy named Kevin Holland.
Oh,
And
as a
that
legend.
dude's that dude's a legend. He's actually
Mm.
endorsed us as well. But yeah, if you know, you know. But he's an incredible guy. And yeah, we've been very fortunate with the amount of endorsements we've been able to receive. And I mean, we have all the momentum in the world going into this election. I just hope it's going to be enough.
How's it looking, polls wise and funding and everything? How's your campaign team feeling? And is obviously you're not going to stop till the whistle blows, right? Till the votes come in. But are you feeling pretty good? Is it feeling pretty solid?
Yeah, we've actually, I mean, it's a good place to be when you can say this, but I think after this is all over, win or lose, I can look back and probably say that there's not a single thing we could have done better. I mean, we've been fundraising, we've got grassroots support, we've got good endorsements. I mean, we're spending the money effectively and efficiently. I mean, we've even got a little bit of national help as well. I mean, we have we have a really good shot at this. And like I said, I think we're one of the most competitive races in the country. Luckily, the guy
For
that we're
sure.
running against is incredibly far left. Um, and the only thing that he has going for him is that he's a 33-year incumbent. He's got the money advantage with PACs, and there's a slight Democrat registration advantage in the district, but the non-affiliated voters lean Republican. So it's basically considered a coin toss, and we'll see what comes up between now and November 3rd. But at least right now, I mean, it's basically a coin toss.
Well, I believe like in in coin tosses. I believe in coin tosses because like you know if you're at that point, you've basically won, right? And like, and I love that. What I also think is going to be awesome is I can't wait to hear your your freshman speech. Like I can't wait to hear it because like you're gonna roll up with this posse, right? You're gonna roll up with this posse, and you're gonna like make it so that they can't even say the squad anymore because you're gonna own that. You're gonna be like, so let me tell you the meaning of squad. Like you think this is a squad? No, no, no. Like this is an actual squad, and that fire team, they're pretending is a squad, is going to learn real fast like what it's like to have. I mean, like you said, Dan Crenshaw. Like take the Navy SEAL out of it. Take the Navy SEAL out of it. Take the eye patch out of it. Like you got a guy that Harvard, one of the most eloquent, exceptionally sharp-witted, crazy educated, and can put it together, can put it all together. Tom Cotton, like holy smokes, when that dude like decides to put word to his thoughts, he communicates just such a powerful message. And when you look at all these like Brian Mass down in Florida, like when you start putting all of these guys, to start throwing in the CIA guys like Will Hurd and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, like that
Also,
little fight.
one of my favorite stories too is Mark Green out of Tennessee. He took over from Marsha
Yeah,
Blackburn when she moved up to the Senate. He was a SOAR pilot and then became a medical doctor due to some personal experience in his life. And now he's a congressman, just like crazy, crazy resumes. And then
yeah,
actually, one person that I'm hopefully is going to be in my freshman class is Sean Parnell out of Pennsylvania
yeah,
17.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, we've got, and
Sean,
not just the
Love Sean.
veterans, but I
Sean's a
mean,
good
we've got a
friend.
great,
Yeah.
if we all win our races, of course, we've got a great potential
Yeah,
freshman class with Sean Parnell, Madison Cawthorn, Burgess Owens, Wesley Hunt. I mean,
yeah.
it's gonna be a good crew.
Well, there's going to be a senior master chief, a fellow movie star, fellow military movie star, coming out of Wisconsin too. Van Orton, that guy's. I mean, like
Oh,
he's going to be phenomenal, man. Like, no, I have never been so optimistic about having true leaders in leadership roles, and like it's time for us to show America not through protests, not through violence, not through bullying, not through cancel culture. It's time to let acts and deeds demonstrate, not words. And this, I believe, is the turning point on that. Like where we can stand together and get behind people because they actually represent us and they represent what's the best in us. Not like I'm here because like I don't want to be a bartender anymore. Like
Or I just got
not
some
an
money. Yeah.
example of intelligence.
Right. Well, absolutely. So we got a few minutes left. I do want to take it back to probably the most, probably the biggest moment in your life, and that was being on Dancing with the Stars. But
Mm.
it's that's a
Oh
rarity. I
yeah,
mean, anybody can fight terrorists, but how many people? I mean, well, Carol Baskin was just on, so she may have brought the bar down a little bit, but yeah. So, but no, seriously, just to hit on that lighthearted moment. I mean, how was that when you got the? You've had, when you've gotten the call from Clint Eastwood and you've got to hang out with him and you made the and he used you, not just used you as an advisor, but used you and all three of you guys in the movie. But to get the call like, hey, what do you think about being on Dancing with the Stars? What was that moment like when you got that call or got asked, hey, would you think about doing this? That had to be out of left field.
It absolutely was. And the crazy thing about it was, I think I got the call the second day after I got back to the States. So it was probably only a week or 8 days after the terrorist attack itself. And so I had like no time to process anything. The show started in like a week, and I just needed to make the decision right then and there. And I mean, obviously, how much they pay didn't hurt, but I actually talked to Noah Galloway, who was on the season before me, a double amputee, I think, from Iraq. And he basically said that, yeah, it's a little corny, but it's actually a lot of fun and it's worth it overall. And so on that, I agreed to it, and was a little corny, but honestly, it was a lot of fun. And they have really good people on the show. They're all really nice, and I had a lot of fun. And I mean, other than Clint Eastwood and making a movie about yourself, it's definitely one of the highlights of my life.
I mean, your dance game had to go up. I mean, the bar's got to be high now when you get on the dance floor. If anyone, go to a wedding reception or go to the club.
I am retired from dancing, but I did get third on the show. I don't know how, but I'm not the worst if I can have a professional dance partner teach me for about 30 hours a week.
Yeah, you're still teachable. That's good to know. But no, I can say it's still I would imagine if you did something like that, and someone you go to a wedding reception or go to a wedding, they're like, hey, they're waiting to see you get out there and just start cutting moves. Let's see what you did when you did the earless. No, not at all. Huh?
I don't go to those kinds of things.
Stay off of trains too now.
Not so much actually, but definitely a little bit more vigilant now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, like I say,
I'd be like doing all my campaign stuff from a train. I'd be going old school. I'd be sitting on the stacks of like 2x10s, like being towed around like the loop of like my congressional district with a mega. I'd be like, I know what it's like.
I'm back on the train. Yeah, this train is safe.
That's right.
This train is safe, and I can make your community safe too. There we go. Look, I just came up with it right.
That's right.
If we joke at my campaign actually that if we win this race, we're going to write another book. That's the first one, and first one's called the 1517 to Paris, like the movie, and the sequel is going to be the 1517 to Congress. So fingers crossed.
Nice. There you go. That's it. That's it, man. Now you've got, obviously, looking at your platform, to kind of go back to that real quick. I mean, you've got it up on your website. And your focus seems to be really on your local community. It's really your focus seems to be not so much, hey, I'm going to go to Washington and change national stuff, which I'm sure you will once you get there, but it's you're really talking to your constituents, and that's really what you seem to be focused on. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I'd say probably the number one issue is proper force management, which is also tied to the economy, since we have such a terrible economy here. Also want to get that turned around and lower taxes. I mean, healthcare as well is a big issue in Southwestern Oregon, access to the VA for veterans. And also, of course, due to what I survived on the train in the middle of a gun-free continent, I'm pretty pro Second Amendment, as well as some other issues. Like there's a shooting at my college only about 6 weeks after the terrorist attack. And only about a week after that, Spencer was stabbed almost to death in a bar fight in Sacramento. So a lot of instances in my life where guns could have saved lives.
Yeah, and you have the firsthand experience and direct experience to talk about it. Where can people find things about? Where can they find you at? Where can they do to support and help? Because you're not the first, you won't be the last veteran we've had on, and like yourself, we've had many folks that say, I may not live in that person's district or whatever, but what can I do to help? And I want to make sure we get those sites out there.
Yeah, so obviously we have a Facebook. Make sure you click on the campaign account, not my personal. And we also have a website, alekfororegon.com, ALEKFOR, Oregon.com. And if you want to donate or volunteer or have any questions, you can shoot us an email or send us a Facebook message. And either Al or my team will respond. But thank you so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been great having you on. Again, if nothing else, we're just highlighting a veteran still carrying on, still serving, and trying to make a difference. Like Toby said, being a leader for our nation and for the Oregon 4th District, which is huge. I'm a big believer in term limits, and nobody should spend 47 years, or even, in my opinion, 20 years in office. I believe, in my personal opinion, is 3-term limits max for both sides. And I think when it means someone's been in there for that long, it's time to replace them, because they've lost touch with what they went there for. And so I think it's good that you're stepping up. So wish you the best of luck. And hope that we'll be watching the whole way. Obviously, we're very tuned into politics and national policy, and the Oregon 4th is now on my watch list. So on that Tuesday night, I'm going to be watching that color to change. So good luck, buddy, and stay in touch. And if once you win, maybe we can get you back on. It'd be great to hear to get some perspective on how that whole event was. And I'm planning on your winning. So.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do it again. Thanks for having me, though.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alek. You have a good night. Toby, we'll probably wrap up a couple things here. And Alek, thank you again for your Thursday night, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, everybody. There you go. It's okay. I gotta find where is my? There we go. Nope, that was Toby.
So while Troy's like.
Are we clear then?
Yep,
yeah,
we're
you're
good.
Okay. Cool.
So everyone, Toby, anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, great. Great to have Alek on, man. I love it when we see people do great things with an opportunity provided, and like I remember like that. I think it's the opening scene. Is it the opening scene in Range 15? Where it's like, oh, but did you like? It's like, a lucky bastard. But on the other hand, it's like, awesome, man. Like, and too often we see people in our community try and leverage, misfortune or tragedy, for fame, for stupid little Instagram fame, and like influence that's so irrelevant to mankind, when we know better, when we absolutely know better, and especially as leaders, we expect more. And I love seeing someone leverage the opportunity to better their people, man. So like, I'm excited for them. I can't wait. I want to get Bellavia writing his speeches.
Yes.
I want Bellavia to join him in Congress.
I was on there with Dave again today, and we were talking before we went on air with him, and we were talking about who we have an Alek on tonight. So definitely,
that's awesome, man.
You need to get him out there to the West Coast and stump for him some. But
you guys got to get Kevin Holland on your podcast.
Oh, we wish, man. We got to. Like, we believe.
Yeah. All right, we're going to sign off, let everyone go. We're going to chat with Alek here for a little bit. We're going to do a little after the show, but just going to be the three of us. So everyone, you guys have a great Thursday night. Thank you for joining us. Be sure and tune in and check out Alek's site. Check out his Facebook page, Alek for Congress, 04 District of Oregon, and spread the word, even if you don't live in the area. Let people know, and I'm sure you could use the support. And with all that, we'll see you guys next Thursday here on Stu and the Nunn, 8 o'clock Eastern. Be sure and tune in all of our outlets, all of our channels, and we will talk to you all then. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.